I have to confess that I'm not a religious person, but I absolutely love biblical epics. Ever since I first saw Ben-Hur as a kid, I've just loved them. I especially love the historical elements and, of course, the spectacle and drama that comes with all that. So every year when Easter rolls around, I like to catch up on one or two of these epics at least. And this year I've decided to do something additionally by compiling a short list of what I think are the 5 best biblical epics ever made, or at least that I've yet seen. At number 5, I have Mel Gibson's 2004 blockbuster, The Passion of the Christ. And yes, I'm aware of the controversy surrounding the movie, but as I said in my opening, I am not a religious person, but rather love these movies essentially for the spectacle that they bring. And as brutal as Gibson's movie is, and it is truly brutal in its depiction of the last days of Jesus, I found it to be a stunning and pronounced visual masterwork. It is spectacular to look at, and features a standout performance in particular from Jim Caviezel, who I thought was terrific a few years earlier in Terrence Malick's anti-war masterpiece, The Thin Red Line. The other reason for me liking this movie is a personal one. It was the only time I ever went to the cinema with my late mother. She took me and my younger brother along, and the three of us all loved this. It will be forever etched in my memory, like the inscription on an artifact in one of these movies. And it was also the last time I ever went to the movies with my youngest brother, who sadly passed away the year after The Passion's released. And it's for this reason that I'll never forget this epic movie. At number 4, I've got Martin Scorsese's The Last Temptation of Christ. Scorsese's film about the life of Christ was met with considerably more controversy than even Gibson's upon its release back in 1988. I've read of some extreme reactions to it, including when it was released here in my own country, Australia, that security guards were assigned to some cinemas on the East Coast to check bags for, among other things, explosive devices. Cinemas were burnt in Paris too, I've read. This movie differs significantly from most of the others on this list in that it's not actually based on the Gospels, but rather is a fictional exploration of Christ's spiritual struggle, based on the 1956 book of the same name by Nikos Kazantzakis. It's an artistical interpretation for sure, and although it doesn't have the gargantuan crowd scenes normally associated with traditional epics, I feel it still merits inclusion on this list for its boldness, its daring, and its originality, as much as for anything else. It should also be noted that director Martin Scorsese and his family were cordially received by Pope Francis at the Vatican in 2016, 30 years after the controversial release of The Last Temptation of Christ. But most importantly, as far as I'm concerned, as a lover of cinema, the movie stars Willem Dafoe, one of my absolute favourite actors as Jesus. Temptation's cast is also a highlight and includes Harvey Keitel as Judas and Barbara Hershey as Mary Magdalene. There's also Alien's Harry Dean Stanton as the assassin who kills Lazarus, and curiously, musician David Bowie as Pontius Pilate. And for lovers of indie cinema, you'll also spot Jim Jarmusch regular John Lurie as the Apostle James. And finally, eagle-eyed Star Wars fans might recognise Irvin Kershner, the man who directed what many consider to be the best Star Wars movie ever made, The Empire Strikes Back, in a cameo as the hypocrite Zebedee. At number 3, I have The Greatest Story Ever Told, a 1965 epic directed by George Stevens. But it should be noted that 2 other directors, including David Lean of Lawrence of Arabia fame and Gene Negulesco, filmed additional scenes for the movie. The movie chronicles the traditional gospel narrative for the most part and features a stunning lead performance from Swedish great Max von Sydow, who gives what I think is the best cinematic performance in the role of Jesus. And as with so many biblical epics, the cinematography in this movie is a visual treat, as are the special effects. And I can probably say the same for Alfred Newman's terrific Oscar-nominated score. This movie is truly epic in every sense of the word. And speaking of epic, along with von Sydow, the acclaimed cast also includes Telly Savalas, TV's Kojak, who I discovered shaved his head for this role as Pontius Pilate and kept it shaved for the rest of his life. There's also Donald Pleasance, Jose Ferreira, Angela Lansbury, Martin Landau, Charlton Heston, and Roddy McDowall. Incidentally, Heston and McDowell would appear together 3 years after this in arguably the greatest sci-fi movie of all time, Planet of the Apes. Full disclosure, I am a Planet of the Apes nut. At number 2, I've got The Ten Commandments, a 1956 epic that was based on the 1949 book Prince of Egypt by Dorothy Clark Wilson and was directed by the legendary Cecil B. DeMille. It tells the story of Moses, Charlton Heston, who, after being found adrift in a basket on the Nile River and being adopted into the household of the Pharaoh, is raised to be a Prince of Egypt. After learning of his true heritage, however, he leads the Hebrew people out of Egypt and away from the tyranny of Pharaoh Ramses II, played by Yul Brynner. He then communes with God and is given the Ten Commandments, which he then delivers unto his people. Even now, nearly 7 decades later, this movie still looks absolutely incredible and has lost none of its visual or dramatic power. As an interesting bit of trivia, DeMille handpicked Charlton Heston for the role of Moses after he decided that the actor bore a striking resemblance to Michelangelo's statue of Moses in Rome. The Ten Commandments was also the last film from the legendary DeMille, who died aged 77 just 3 years after the movie's release. And finally, at number 1, I have William Wyler's Ben-Hur, which was released in 1959 and is what I personally consider to be the best of all the biblical epics. And I must have seen this movie at least 5 times or more since I was a kid. It's also one of the best movies ever made, full stop. It tells the story of a Jewish prince and merchant, Judah Ben-Hur, Charlton Heston, who, after being wrongfully accused of a harmless incident, is cast into slavery by a vindictive former friend turned commanding officer in the Roman army, Messala, Stephen Boyd. Out of pure spite, Messala also has Judah's mother and sister charged and thrown into prison. While he's serving as a slave on a Roman warship, which is subsequently sunk in battle, he saves the life of the ship's captain, Quintus Arius, Jack Hawkins, who then liberates him from his enslavement and adopts him as his own son. There's a great moment aboard the warship amidst the battle where Hawkins says to Heston,
"Your eyes are full of hate." 41. That's good. Hate keeps a man alive. It gives him strength.
This is probably the best line in the movie, out of so many I might add, and it beautifully sets the tone for everything to come. From this point on, Judah plots his revenge against Messala, culminating in the chariot race, which is generally acknowledged as being one of the most iconic scenes ever filmed. There were, I believe, more than 15,000 extras used for the chariot race scene alone on the massive Roman film set. It's hard to find any faults whatsoever in this enduring classic. The writing, the cinematography, the special effects, the cast were all remarkable, and it rightfully swept the Academy Awards for 1959. And what a terrific cast there was for this movie. In addition to Heston in the lead role, for which he won Best Actor, there was Hugh Griffith, also taking a statue for Supporting Actor, Stephen Boyd and Palestinian actress Haya Harari, who were each nominated for their roles. There was English star of TV's Dad's Army, John Le Mesurier, who can also be seen briefly as a Colosseum doctor, and even Australian actor Frank Thring as Pontius Pilate. I remember my dad telling me over and over as a kid that he and Thring were either born in the same hospital or grew up in the same suburb of Melbourne, I think. One of the two. Ben-Hur, like the other films on this shortlist, are all, in my opinion, terrific movies in their own way. So this Easter, if you're stuck for something to watch, why not grab some popcorn and catch up on a biblical epic or two? That's what I'll be doing. And if you feel like it, why not leave a comment on what you think are the best biblical movies ever made?